Let's look at some of the data. India, once again from Affirmative Action Around the World, quote, India has had affirmative action programs longer than any other nation, beginning in the British colonial times and then provided for in its constitution when it became an independent country in 1947, close quote. Take us through this. In India, affirmative action is for whom?
Initially, it was for the untouchables, who are probably among the most persecuted people on earth. At a time when blacks in the South had to sit in the back of the bus, untouchables weren't supposed to sit anywhere. They were to stand in the back of the bus. You know, and then it just goes on from there.
This is what percentage of the population?
About, if I remember correctly, about 16%.
16%, and these are people who are so low they don't even count in the caste system.
No, that's right. That's right. Treated abominably. And so it's understandable people would want to do something to make things better for them. What actually happened, however, is that extremely few untouchables actually are able to make use of any of these preferences and quotas.
The preferences and quotas are for hiring or education, or what form
Both.
do they take?
They're actually for hiring, for education, for seats in parliament. But of course, for all those things, you have to have various complementary resources. So it doesn't do you any good if you're somebody out in a little village where you're struggling to make ends meet, that there's a place reserved for you in the medical school, you know, and you'll be lucky if you can make it to high school.
Is that a case of affirmative action badly aimed? Meaning, should there be more economic resources? Should that be the kind of affirmative action? Should they be targeting Milton Friedman's old idea of a negative income tax? Should they just be putting cash in the hands of untouchables?
That wouldn't be affirmative action, I guess. Well, affirmative action really is preferences and quotas.
Okay.
But the thing is for which they create preferences and quotas, not only in India but in other countries around the world, are typically things that the elite would be interested in. College admission, government jobs, seats in parliament. And for that, you have to have other resources. So what we call untouchables, as if they're one sort of uniform group, is really a collection of many different groups. Many of whom are separate from each other and do not intermarry or whatnot. And the ones of the untouchables, there are some who are prosperous for one historical reason or another. And they grab off the lion's share of all these benefits. And the vast majority of untouchables are completely cut off from these things.
Let me quote you again. This is from your conclusion about India. It is hard to escape the conclusion that affirmative action in India has produced minimal benefits to those most in need and maximum resentments and hostility toward them on the part of others.
Yes.
Now that's the second piece of this. Why should it be that affirmative action should increase the resentment toward untouchables?
Because if there are 100 jobs there, and 3 of them have been set aside for, and 3 untouchables are actually able to make use of the set-asides for them, then everybody who lost a job will say he would have been hired if it only been the untouchables hadn't grabbed these. Now there may be 50 people seething with anger at not having gotten these 3 jobs, but had there been no untouchables, 47 of them wouldn't have gotten the jobs anyway.
I see.
And so you create a resentment out of all proportion to the actual benefits that have been transferred.
You write that although India has had this policy of affirmative action for many decades, violent incidents toward untouchables never fell below 13,000 a year during the 1980s and actually rose to more than 20,000 a year during the 1990s. Question, would you go so far as to argue that the untouchables themselves would have been better off had India never instituted affirmative action programs?
It's a tough one, but I would lean towards saying yes.
On what basis?
On the basis that so few of them have gotten anything at all, and all of them have suffered from the backlash.
I see. All right.